In the movie The Truman Show, a guy lived under a huge dome and he was totally unaware of it, and people filmed his every move. Anyway, I want you to imagine that you're living on this little black counter under a big dome, and every month, one day a month, as the sun passes over, it leaves a mark on the dome where you would see it if you're right in the center. Anyway, here we go now. So the dome, we're going to drop it down in Mexico for a year, and this is what the sun paths will look like. So Mexico is at latitude 19.4, so it's in the tropics, and Mexico City, and we can see here that the sun is right overhead in May, June and July. So 3 months it's right up there, almost exactly overhead, slightly north of the east-west line. So there's the east-west line. So the sun rises due east and sets due west in the northern hemisphere. And anyway, in December the sun is fairly far, its path is fairly far north on your dome, and as the year passes, the path slowly moves to the south, and the speed of the path moving to the south accelerates February, March and April, and then it slows down again, and then for a few months it's stuck in pretty much the same spot, pretty much right above your head. So we're going to move on to Dallas. So Dallas is at 32.7. So in China they have solar greenhouses, which are passive solar greenhouses. What they say in the blurb on some of the sites is in northern China. So what they count as northern China is from Dallas, from an area the same latitude as Dallas to the same latitude as Minnesota. So that really isn't northern anything, but they call it northern China in the books or on the websites. So anyway, here we are in Dallas, and it's at the same level as the south of northern China. So in June, now I'll just change back to Mexico and see what's happening. The southern limit is going up, and the June sun is less high in the sky, but it stays a bit longer. So 6 p.m. here, and we go to Dallas, and it's going to just after 7 p.m. So this is an important thing to note when you're designing a greenhouse. So it's gone a little bit further to the north, and now we're going to go up to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee, I think it's at 43 degrees north. So now the sun is setting almost, so it's at least 7:30 here, or around 7:30 here when it sets on the longest day of the year. Meanwhile, on the shortest day of the year, it's only 7:30 to 4:30. That's as long as it's in the sky. So the short days are a lot shorter, and the long days are quite a bit longer. We're going up to Victoria, where I live, and as you can see, we're getting very, very long daylight hours now in the summer, and correspondingly shorter daylight hours in the winter. So December 21st, it's just before 8 and just after 4 is the cut-off points. Now we're going to go Olds, Alberta. Now there's a reason we're going here. Olds is at 50 1.7 north. And in Olds, we're seeing now that your 4 a.m. in the morning is your start of your sunshine on the longest day of the year, and 8 p.m. is sundown. So the sun goes up, doesn't go that high in the sky, it goes up to, what's this, it's just over 60 degrees on the longest day of the year. So it's not very high in the sky, but it's compensated for by a very long time in the sky. And now we can see in the so there's the east-west line which divides the sky into the south part and the north part. So in Olds, it's on the long days of summer, it's spending 1, 2, 3, 6, almost 7 hours in the northern part of the sky. And I'll come back to that shortly, why that's important. Here, so you got to remember that the observer is right here on this point here. And sundown in December 21st is at about, it's before 4 p.m. and it's after 8 p.m. or sorry, 8 a.m. in the morning. So you're not getting very much sun, and it's coming from a specific area, a specific triangle of the sky at that point in time. So now we're going to go up to where I used to work in Baltinglass in Ireland, and a little bit see how it's gradually going. For everything is going further to the north, but we're also getting longer summer days. So in Baltinglass, it's about maybe almost just after 3:30 a.m. is when the sun comes up on the longest day, and on the shortest day it's just before 8:30 it rises. Now we're going to Anchorage. So I know a few people who live in Anchorage, Alaska, and now we're getting to see something totally different. The sun is rising at about not long after 2 a.m. on the longest day, and it's setting just after 9:30. And the shortest days now it's very, very low in the sky, so it only comes up to 5 degrees above the horizon in the sky, so it's puny. And yeah, and it's at 61.2. So I've worked one time at 60 degrees, so I've never actually been as far north as this. Here we go to Tuktoyaktuk. So this is in Yukon, or I think it's in Yukon, and we have a pretty unusual thing to happen in a populated part of the world, and it is you get the midnight sun because it's above the Arctic Circle. So it's at 69.4 degrees north, and on a summer day the sun will stay above the horizon in June till at maybe 3 degrees in the north. So if you're on a nice flat plain, you'll be able to see the sun going right around you if you're prepared to stay up all night in June and May, June and July, I think. Yeah, so May, June and July the sun is goes right around in a circle around you, and it's much higher in the south, in the southern part of the sky than when it's in the northern part of the sky, but it goes right around in a circle. And then we come here January 21st, November 21st, and it's just on the horizon. And then December, there's no sun. So you gain that little bit of midnight sun in the summer, and you lose it. You lose sunlight entirely in the winter. So I'm just going to whip back and through these and show you how it changes. So bump, 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 bump. So this has everything. This is why I think it's called Wallapini. The pit greenhouses are used in places like Mexico and in parts of South America where it's cold at night, maybe deserty situations where it's hot in the day and freezing cold at night. So you do a pit greenhouse because the sun, when it goes up into the sky, it goes very high. And now we go to Dallas. So you could probably do a pit greenhouse in Dallas, but if you go up to Milwaukee, the sun is a lot lower in the sky, and it might not be such a wonderful idea. Victoria. Now, the Chinese solar greenhouses are put in an entirely different orientation than the standard high tunnel greenhouses. So I'm just going to go to, sorry. This is, so there's a guy from China emigrated to Canada about 8 or 9 years ago. And he's a geologist, I think, and he was going to work in the oil industry, but it didn't pan out because they went through one of their bust cycles. Oil in Canada always goes through boom and bust cycles. So he decided to become a farmer while he waited for an uptick. So his farm, so he has this farm in Olds, Alberta, and this is it from the sky in the summer. So the sun is coming from the bottom. So south is the bottom, north is the top. And you can see the shadows here, so this is summertime where there's short shadows. And this perfectly illustrates the benefits and the pitfalls of the two different greenhouse types. So these are the summer greenhouses, or the standard North American greenhouse, which is a high tunnel. Plastic high tunnel, and these are the Chinese solar greenhouses. So the back of this greenhouse is a wall, and it'll have a kind of a slope along the back of it to have a little bit of an overhang, almost like a bus shelter, where the plants are shielded from the cold from the north side. So in winter in Olds, you're getting the sun only from the south. So there's no point in having having glazing on the north. So what to do is to just seal off the north, insulate it as much as possible, and just have sunlight coming from the south. And so in summer there's a bit of a disadvantage going on because in summer, as you can see from the charts that I just showed you, a substantial amount of light, say 3.5 hours per day, or sorry, 7 hours per day in high summer is coming from north of the east-west line. So here's the east-west line. North of the east-west line you're getting 7 hours of sunlight coming from there in the summer. So these are at quite a disadvantage with regard to harvesting light in the summer. But in the winter, these things, this is the standard high tunnel orientation, which is north-south. These are east-west. In the winter, the sun coming from low in the sky south, these are getting terribly poor amount of sunlight. So you can pack them in very tightly together, but in the winter they're a total loss. They'd be great for just radiating heat rather than storing it. And you can see also that they're they're much more packed tightly, so you can get much more production, greenhouse production, from this area in the summer than from this. However, in Alberta, there's quite a bit of land available. So here's another picture. We're just going to go over here to this corner here. Oops, I did it wrong. Beg your pardon. So over here, these are the greenhouses. So there's the two, and you can't really see the other ones. So they're the greenhouses in this tiny little corner here. And this is, I guess, cereal growing area. So there's enormous amount of space for intensive agricultural production in Alberta. So he's way above the 43 degrees, this man from China. And let's see, we'll just go back here. We go to Olds, Alberta. So he's at 51.7 and north, while Milwaukee is 43. So he's a long ways north of the ideal places for these greenhouses. However, the last of those greenhouses were designed in about 2007 that I have seen, and his design is quite a bit different. He has 2 layers of plastic over his greenhouse with a roll down blanket between the 2 layers. So it's a pretty fancy design, and so the Chinese style solar passive greenhouses are going creeping further and further north. And for ordinary people like me, just with a little small backyard greenhouse, we can learn from these charts how to make a better greenhouse for winter production. The thing about winter production in a greenhouse is it's a bit harder, but when you produce fruit and veg in the summer, you're doing it when fruit and veg is at its cheapest. If you're doing it in the winter, especially in northern climates, you're doing it when fresh fruit and vegetable or fresh vegetables are at their highest cost, and where the transport for getting them in and out is at its highest cost too, because winters can be quite unpleasant. Even in Victoria, winter is not so much fun. So anyway, that was the point. I hope this helps people understand that we can be designing better greenhouses and making especially making better decisions if we look at these charts. And I'm going to do another one too. I'm going to do what I would think is a better way of demonstrating how the sun moves across the sky. I'm going to do that in the next couple of weeks. But we shall go back to this, and now, so for a so these are expensive. These Chinese-style greenhouses are expensive because just because of the size, and because currently you have to import the metal, because it's a very special curve that they've been doing in China for the last maybe 15 years. So they've learned how to make the metal spans for these very well. But maybe there's a compromise for people in North America that I have never seen. So the compromise would be to get these high tunnels and turn them around and maybe put them a little further apart, and then when the middle of September comes along, what you do is you put in the middle of September, the sun is no longer in the northern half of the sky, so you could put in a temporary wall, not quite at the top of the greenhouse, just a little bit to the north side, a temporary insulated reflective wall inside the greenhouse. Remove your plants from the northern third of each greenhouse, so it'd be a little bit further apart. You remove the plants from the northern third come September, and continue on the production in the south 2/3 using the wall, reflective insulated wall, to keep it a little bit warmer and a little bit brighter through the winter. So that's just my little take on something that people haven't, I don't think people have done, who knows, but I have never seen any indication that people have done that. And an insulated wall inside a greenhouse is already protected, so it can be light, and just pop it in straight through east to west. I know there's going to be, there is going to be some difficulty with these greenhouses. There's going to be a little bit more condensation during the day on the northern side of them, but at the same time, I think the benefits will outweigh the disadvantages. Anyway, I'm going to stop ahead for the moment. Thank you very much. I've just had a power cut for unknown reasons. So thank you, and stopping recording now. Thank you very much. Bye bye.